you will run an app. So as a developer, we should be aware that how to debug our code. So in Android Studio, so we can use a debugger tool. So how to do it? So what is debug? So what is debugging? So where debugging is a process to find and fix the errors which has been occurred in your code. So so there may be a bug or there may not be a bug. So bugs can result in many reasons. So if there is any error in your design, there may be a bug, or if there is any error in the implementation, that is one reason. So, or if you are in an Android framework, so if you have done any mistakes, there will be a bug. Or so if there is any missing in your app, so you should see that also. Or if you have any device limitations in the emulator, there may be an error. So that not only the four reasons, you may have a many reasons to occur a bug. So how we need to move it? So using debugging, testing, profiling capabilities in Android Studio help us to reproduce, find and resolve the problems. So we will see one by one all the things. Okay. So those capabilities may be Android monitor. There is an Android monitor where you can look. That is a logcat, what we say. So in the previous video, we have seen about the logcat. So the next is Android Studio debugger. So and one more is testing framework where it has JUnit and Espresso and Dalvik debug monitors server, that is DDMS. That's a to track resource usage. So let's see how to run debugger. So running the debugger. So how we are going to run the debug? So running an app in debug mode is similar to just running an app. So running a debugger means just you are running your application. So we can either run your app in a debug mode or you can attach the debugger for the already running app. So if you are already running your app, you can attach the debugger. So or before running, you can run the application in a debug mode. So how to run that? So run your app in debug mode. To start debugging, you have a symbol like this in the menu bar. So that is debug tool. So you can click on that. So Android builds an APK sign it with a debug key. Install it on your selected device. So this is the window which is going to debug things. So let's learn the concept first, and then we will see the Android Studio and run the and debug an app. So next is debug running app and resuming or stopping the debug. So debug running app means if you are already running your application, how to debug that running application. So for that, you need to follow those steps. So for select run and go to the run option in the menu bar. Then you see in the drop down, you will get attach debugger to Android process. So our attach debug process you will get. So there or click attach icon in the menu bar. Okay. In the second step, you will get a prompt dialog box. There you need to choose process and there you have to select the So if you want to debug already running application, so then you can go for a run and attach debugger to process and click on the attach icon on the toolbar. Choose. In the next, you need to choose a process. So you will appear in a dialog box. There you need to select the process which you want to attach the debugger and then click OK. So if you want to stop or resume your debugging, so then to resume an execution after executing an app, so to select run, resume program and click on the icon which is in the menu bar. Or if you want to stop, just stop, run. If you go for a run and then you can click on the stop, then it will be stopped. Then or you can go for an icon which is present in the menu bar. So that is about. So let's see how it will look. Okay. So this is your application. So you can go for a start or you can run or you can go for a debug app. So it will run. It will take a time to build the Gradle. Or you can go here. You will be having your debugger. In the menu bar, you have an icon. This is to debug. So to build the Gradle, it takes some time. Now, so until Gradle runs, we will see the next concept. So using breakpoints. See, what is this breakpoints? See, when you are having a code, n lines of code, see, you want to debug the code. Okay. So this breakpoint is a place in a code where you want to pause the normal execution. See, for example, so at some point of line, you want to stop the execution. You need to see how it is going to execute. So if you want to examine some of the variables in your app, or if you want to evaluate any expressions, or you want to stop some of the code at that point on, or if you want to see the execution of the code line by line. So how we need to do that? So in the Android Studio, we can have a breakpoint where it stops there and you can run line by line, or you can examine the variables whichever you want in your application, or if you want to evaluate any expressions. So other such actions can be done using a breakpoints. So how to add breakpoints? How you need to add breakpoints? To add a breakpoints to the line in your code, so you need to locate the line of code where you want to pause the execution. So it means at what point of line you need to pause the execution. So you need to see that line of code and click the left gutter of the editor window. In the editor window, you need to click on the left. At which point of line you want to pause, click in the left next to the line number. A red dot appears in that line, okay, indicating that breakpoint. So we can also use, so if you can't do like this, you can also go for a run toggle line breakpoint or control F8 or control F8 to set the breakpoint. So to see here, see here, so if you want to have a breakpoint, so if you see in this here, I will set a breakpoint for the result. When you are getting a result, I will set the breakpoint. So here it indicates, so if you click on next to the line number, so you will get a breakpoint, or you can go for a run, and toggle breakpoint. So there you can press Control F5 line. Wherever you want, you can click on that. So wherever the cursor is there, it will put the breakpoint. So that is how you need to add a breakpoint. So next, view and configure the breakpoint. So if you want to configure breakpoints, how you are going to configure it? To do view all breakpoints you have set, there is no necessity to you can have only one breakpoint. So if you want, you can put n number of breakpoints. Wherever you are required, you can put the breakpoint here. Okay, it means that at that point of line, the execution will be paused. Then you can check for whichever the condition you want. You can check, or if you want to check any variables or expressions, or if you want to see that how the line of code executes line by line, you can check by using the by putting the breakpoint. So to view all breakpoints, you have set and configure breakpoint settings. So if you want to configure the breakpoints, you can configure it. So click the view breakpoint icon on the left edge of the debugger window. The breakpoint window appears. See here. You can get the window. Okay. So to view this, you can go here and you can just click on that. See, you will get this window. So you can configure it. So whether what point, what condition you want to check, you can put the condition over here. So if you want to evaluate and log, you can then click and you can give the options. Okay. So if you want to check the exceptions at this point of line, see here, this point line shows at this point of line, you want to see any check exception breakpoints. If you want to put, so here you have been put Java line breakpoints. So if you want to put Java exception breakpoints or exception breakpoints, you can select over here. Okay, it will put the exception breakpoints also. Okay, this is how you need to configure your breakpoint. So next, so disable all breakpoints. So disabling means disabling a breakpoint enable you temporarily mute that breakpoint without removing it from your code. So just you can mute the breakpoint by click the icon again to enable all breakpoints. So just click over here, it will mute or it disable the breakpoint. That's it. Okay. So next is use conditional breakpoints. Okay, use conditional breakpoints. So conditional breakpoints are breakpoints that only stop execution of your app if the test in the condition is true. So condition breakpoints are breakpoints that only stop execution of your app if the test condition is true. So conditional breakpoint means, so whatever the condition you have been given here, see here. So if you have given any condition over here, so if you give any condition over here, so just I'm giving an example. Okay. So at that point, if the condition is true, then conditional breakpoint will be stopped. Okay, so how to define test for a conditional breakpoint, how we need to define the conditional breakpoint. So right click on the breakpoint icon and enter the test in condition field. So here, so run your app in debug mode. Execution of your app stops at the conditional breakpoint if it evaluates true. It means, so if you want to define or configure the conditional breakpoints, just right click on the breakpoint. You will get a dialog box. There you will appear in dialog box where you can give a condition. So in the condition field, you give the whatever the condition is required for your app, give the condition. So then you need to run your app in the debug mode. Okay, after giving a conditional condition, you run your app in the debug mode. So as soon as the condition evaluates to true, at that point your app will be stops. Okay, that is a use of conditional breakpoints. So stepping through code. So it means, so after your app's execution has stopped because a breakpoint has reached. So yeah, if you have put the breakpoint at that point, app execution has been stopped. So you can execute your code from that point. So at what point of line you have been chosen a breakpoint to stop your app running. So from that point, line by line, you can execute it. So how to execute? To begin debugging your app, pause the execution of your app with the breakpoint. So it means you need to pause your app by using the breakpoint. So first step, click step over icon or select step over or type F8. So if you press F8, it will go line by line. So if you want, if you press F7, it will go step into. So it is step over, it is step into and step out. To resume normal execution, run resume program. So if you don't want to do this, if you want to go back, so then go for a run and resume the program, or you will be having an icon in the menu bar like this. You just click on that resume icon. So next is viewing execution stack frames. So how to view execution stack frames? So the frame views of debugger window allow you to inspect the execution stack and specific frame that cause the current breakpoint to be reached. So it means that the frame what we use in the debug window, where it is used to allow you to inspect the execution stack. It means how we can inspect the execution, how it is going to execute, and at a specific frame at the current breakpoint has been reached. So if you see here, so see here, this is a frame. So this is a frame and a variable. See, in this image, this is a frame where it allows from this frame you can inspect the execution stack. Okay, and you can inspect the specific frame. It means that at what breakpoint has been caused to reach that breakpoint. So which line of code is caused to reach that particular breakpoint. So here you can see all this. Okay, so how to inspect and modify variables. So this is about the frames. It means this is about the frames. Okay, this is about variables. So this frames. So the execution stack. What is this execution stack? So execution stack shows all classes and methods that are being executed at this point or in our app. See, whatever the breakpoint you have been put over here. See, whatever the see wherever the breakpoint you have been put over here, so it has been muted now. So now the breakpoint has been muted. Okay, so whatever the classes and methods that are being executed at this point in an app, so that will be shown here. See, if you click on this, see, there is a class called unsafe class, where at what point it has been stopped, public native void park boolean. So this is already predefined classes. So at that particular class, it will go and it has been stopped. Okay. So clicking the line of frames. So if you click on the line of frames, okay. So associated source in the editor and highlights the line where it frame is initially executed. It means that particular line, if you click on that, it means that frame where in which line it is going to execute. So it is on which line it is executing that particular code. So if you click on any of this, see here, if you click on this, so this is a method, this is a class where at this point of line it is going to execute. So you need to have a aware of that at what point of line it is going to executing. Okay. So next is variables, inspect and modify variables. The variables view of the debugger window allows you to inspect the variables available at the current stack frame when the system stops of your breakpoint. So where what are all the variables you have been used, where what object it holds or what collection of arrays it is going to hold. You can expand that variables and you can view that what are all the components within it. So if you want to view the variables which is not visible, click on the restore variable icon, variable view icon. See here. So if you go here, see here, this is a variable view icon. If you click on that, it will show. So you can set the value and you can execute that. So if you want to see for this particular variable, so if you want to set the value, you can set the value. So That is, this is how you are going to set. So in my system, the particular studio is not being proper, so that's why you're getting an error. So this is how you need to edit the values, and you can run it, and you can check that particular point line of code how it is going to execute. This is how you are going to inspect and modify the variable. So if you want to view which is not visible, how you are going to view, this is how you are going to view it. So if you click on this, you will get the values. This is how you need to aware of. So next is setting watches. So watches view provide similar functionality. So the watches are similar to the variables what I said right now. So where variables view except the expression added to the watches pane. So it means variables will not be having any expressions where the watches span persists to debug the sessions. So you can add watches for variables and fields that you access frequently. Okay. So to use watches, begin debugging your app. In the watches pane, click the plus button. So next is evaluating expression. So use evaluate expression to explore the state of variables. So if you want to explore the state of variables, then you need to use an evaluate expression and objects in the app. So including the calling method. To evaluate an expression, what steps we need to perform? So click on evaluate expression icon. Okay, click on evaluate expression icon. Okay, or run evaluate expression, or you can go for run, and you will be having an evaluate expression. Here you will be having an evaluate expression. You can click on this. Okay, or you can also right click on any variable and choose evaluate expression. So how you need to do that? You click on any variable and right click. Evaluate expression. So enter any expressions into the expression window and click evaluate. So whatever the window it will appear, you can enter the expression, whatever the expression you need to evaluate, and click evaluate. So next is more tools for debugging. So Android Studio and the Android XDK includes number of other tools to help you find the correct issues in your code. So it has so many tools. So what are the tools it is included in the Android Studio? So system log, that is log system log, that is logcat, tracing and logging, the Android debug bridge, ADB, and Dalvik debug monitor server, and CPU and memory monitors. Okay, so system log, as we have seen, the system log, the log classes to send messages to the Android system log, where this is this log class. So in the system log, the log class helps to send messages to the Android system log, and also to view those messages in the Android Studio. So as we have said that there will be a debug mode. So in the logcat, you will be having, see here in the logcat, you will be having a debug info warn log assets, where if you want to use a logcat, so in the main class you can go and you can type over here, that is log.d, whatever the message you want to pass, you can do like this to pass the view the message and send the messages. To write log messages in your code, which class we need to use? We need to use a log class. So where this log class helps you to understand the execution flow. Okay, understand the execution flow of the system in your app. So next is tracing and logging. So it is going to analyze the trace, allows you to see how much time is spent in certain methods and which ones are taking the longest time. So tracing and logging means So if you execute any method, how much amount of time it has been taken. So how much amount of time it has been spent on that particular method to execute that method. So to create the trace lines, include the debug class and call one of the start method tracing method. Okay, so this is the method where you can include in your code and you can trace and log. That is start method tracing. So this is a method where you can include in your code to debug the class. Okay, if you want to stop the tracing, there is a method called stop method tracing. Okay, so if you want to start tracing it, you use start method tracing, and if you want to stop method tracing. So next is Android Debug Bridge. So we can call it as ADB. So this is a command line tool. So it is going to communicate with an emulator. So it is a command line tool where by using this command line tool, that is ADB, where we using this you can communicate with an emulator instance. Okay, you can communicate with an emulator instance or an Android powered device. So you can communicate with emulator, or if you don't have an emulator, if you are connected with the device, you can communicate with the Android powered device. So next is Dalvik Debug Monitor Server. DDSM tool provides the port forwarding service. So it what this DDMS provides. So it provides port forwarding service, screen capture, thread and heap information, logcat, process, and incoming call and SMS spoofing, location data spoofing, and more. So in the coming videos, in the coming classes, we will learn this. There is a in the services we will going to run this. We will going to learn this. Okay. So next is CPU and memory monitors. So Android Studio includes number of monitors to help to visualize the behavior of performance. So CPU and memory monitors, it is going to what visualize how your app is using the memory. So how it is going to behaving. So it means that if you have your application, so how much of memory it is going to use, how much of what behavior it is showing. By this you can view the things. Next is trace logging and the Android menu. So there are multiple types of debugging available beyond setting breakpoints. So other than breakpoint settings and stepping through the code, there are so many debugging available, multiple types of debugging available. So we can use logging and tracing to find the issues with code. So there is no necessity to use breakpoints and you can find the debug. We can also use a logging and tracing. So if you have any issues in your code, you can find by like this also. So when you have a trace, when we have a trace log file, we can load the log files in trace views. Okay, we can load the log files in trace views where it is going to display log data in two panels. So as soon as you load the log files in the trace views, so if you want to trace a log file, you should load the log files in the trace view where it is going to display log data in two panels, that is timeline panel and profile panel. So what is timeline panel? The timeline panel describes when each thread and method started and stopped. It tells, this timeline panel tells that we can describe, it tells that each thread, which thread has been stopped and which thread method or a method has been started or it has been stopped. The profile panel provides summary of what happened inside the method. So it means within the method, what all the execution has been happened. So that summary will be provided in the profile panel. In the timeline panel, which thread or which method has been started or it has been stopped. It will be shown in the timeline panel.